Ephesians 4, verse 1, Paul says, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Guys, we're discussing calling and purpose today on Hope Mongers.
Welcome to the Hope Mongers podcast. I am your host, Apaketo Anda, a licensed therapist and the author of Reflections of a Hope Monger. Hope is our theme, and helping you align yourself to your life's purpose is our goal. After listening, you will be educated, inspired, and elevated to unlock your own greatness. So please subscribe to this podcast, share it, and give us a good rating. Now, let's get started.
Well, hello again, and welcome to Hope Mongers. So the verse I just read was from Ephesians 4, verse 1, and that was the NIV version. But I was so intrigued by that verse that I actually looked up a couple of other translations of it. So this is what the Amplified version says. So I, the prisoner of the Lord, appeal to you to live a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called. To live a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called. And then the Message Bible says this: in light of all this, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get out there and walk. Better yet, run on the road God has called you to travel. And then it goes on, I don't want any of you sitting around on your hands. I don't want you strolling off down some path that goes nowhere. And mark that you do this with humility and discipline, not in fits and starts, but steadily pouring yourselves out for each other in acts of love, alert at noticing differences, and quick at mending differences. So guys, we're still talking about purpose and calling. And today I'm actually extremely privileged to be joined by someone who has made it her mission to empower women to succeed in their calling. I'm going to add her now. I have Lady Monica Aryitey. Let me just give me 1 second and let me add her now. Hello, Lady Monica.
Hi, Abba.
Thank
Good
you
to see
so
you.
much
Good to
for
be here.
thank you. Thank you so much for coming. So
Thank you
guys,
for having me.
let me read a little bit of Lady Monica's bio. Lady Monica Aryitey is the co-founder and the co-pastor of Faith Fellowship, an evangelical and charismatic church located in Worcester, Massachusetts. She's the second of 4 children and was brought up, she says, in a Christian home where her parents instilled in their children the love of God and the importance of serving in the house of God in any capacity needed. And so she grew up just loving all things to do with church. Lady Monica is an attorney by training and also holds a master's degree in law. She says that her passion is to empower women and to see women, whatever their ages, their backgrounds, or their educational level, succeed in their calling, whether it's in ministry or in the secular world. And she says that she firmly believes that women are as important in the kingdom and the world as men, and that women must always seek to make significant contributions, whether at church or in their jobs or whatever career choice they make. She says that her father, growing up, never saw gender as a limiting attribute, and she encouraged her to dream big and to never see anything as being impossible. And so Lady Monica, in turn, yearns, she says, to see young girls and young women see themselves in that same light. There's nothing impossible. In Faith Fellowship, which is a church she co-founded with her husband, Lady Monica preaches and teaches alongside the lead pastor, her husband, Pastor Stephen Aryitey. She also heads the women's ministry, spearheads women's retreats and annual women's conferences that women in local churches and beyond attend. And Pastor Stephen and Lady Monica are blessed with 3 children, Joseph, Jude, and Faith. Lady Monica, welcome again.
Thank you again.
I have followed you on social media for the longest time. I've enjoyed watching your pictures and you always look so amazing. I've enjoyed
Okay.
reading your AM musings. So it's a real, I know how busy your schedule is. It's a real honor. First of all, to meet you in person and to have you here with us. So first of all, here on Hope Mongers, we like to go beyond the resume. And
Right.
so I wanted to tell us something not on your bio.
So I'm also called Abba. So that
Oh,
is something
wow.
yes, I'm a Thursday born just like you, and I'm also called Abba. I'm afraid of water and I'm afraid of heights. So I don't swim, never swam in my life. So when I see water, I try to move far away from it. I love tea. I will take tea any day over coffee. And I love hats, I love heels, and I live for weddings.
You know what? That last hat thing you post on social media, I was like, whoa.
I make it my mission to make a few every year, as I prepare for the weddings that come along. So I'm always looking out for weddings. Well, I don't get crash weddings though, but I love to see people start life. I love to see young love. I just love to see them so full of hope and joy and getting ready to take on the world together as a team. So that is something about me that is not on my bio. I love to cook. And I even love it, most when people enjoy my cooking. So Thanksgiving is a big thing for me. Even if I have four people,
wow.
even during COVID, even if nobody's coming, I'm going to put together a spread because I just love to cook.
Wonderful. So I'm a coffee person, so we complement. You're a tea person,
yes.
And so what you're saying is that if you ever come to Florida to visit me, I shouldn't take you on a roller coaster or to a water park.
No, I mean, I'll go, but I'll watch you do your thing. I won't take part in it. So when I go to Six Flags, we have one close by. When I go there, I'm there to watch the kids do their thing, or I will do the kid rides. I never do the grown up rides. I tried that once or twice, and I thought I was gonna die. Okay, like up there, I started praying, getting ready because to meet my maker. So yeah, I'll just watch you, or I'll do the kids ride.
It's interesting. In '95, I went on a roller coaster myself. Honestly, I was up there, and I thought this was it. And personally, I haven't sat on one since then.
So no.
Anyway, so let's get right to it.
Right.
Just like you, I'm also really passionate about encouraging and empowering people to pursue their purpose. So I guess to start out, how would you define the word calling?
Right.
And my second question is it different than the word purpose?
So I'd say that the two are linked together in the sense that purpose answers the question of why we are here. So we normally like to say, well, here for a purpose. What is the reason why God made you? Because God didn't make you to come on earth and breathe his precious air and then just go away after 70 years. Now we like to say or sing songs about, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. But if the passing through is for 70 years, then you were here for more than just passing through. You're here for a reason. So calling becomes the specific reason why you're here. So I think that purpose is more like the overarching definition of our lives. And then calling is the specific thing that you're called to, or the specific thing that you're here to do. So both of them, I believe, are linked together. Let's say your purpose is to make people well. Right. But then your calling is to be a doctor. So the overarching purpose is I'm here to make people well. I'm here to make people feel good about themselves. But then my specific purpose is to be a doctor. Somebody else's specific calling, not purpose, maybe to be a nutritionist. So I think that I don't want to say one is subsumed under the other, but I think that they are linked as in the calling gives a definition to your purpose, a specific definition to your purpose.
That's great. I really like that definition. I had never thought about it, quite like that. But what is you mentioned your calling. What is your purpose then?
Right. So I would say I would link my purpose to my calling in the sense that I believe that my purpose again is to groom people, to help them live the life that they have been called in the sense that let them live the life that they believe they are here for. So whatever their calling is, whatever their purpose, I believe that I'm here to help them fulfill that purpose. Now, sometimes when you think of purpose, you're thinking of purpose as being that big thing that puts you out there in the limelight, doing something great, something big, something wonderful. But I think that for some of us, our purpose is to help other people discover their purpose. I don't know if that if that helps in any way. So that if I say that, hey, mine here is to encourage these young people, help them alongside, guide them, pray for them, counsel them, walk alongside them, lead them, making sure that they're on track. I'm coming from that place where I believe that you're not here by accident. You're here for a reason. So why are you here? And I'm here to help you discover that. And in doing that, I'm also fulfilling my purpose, or I'm also fulfilling my specific calling of making sure that, hey, I'm pastoring you as I should be doing. So now the other people who may say, okay, my purpose again is to encourage people, but mine is to do maybe motivational speaking to bring them to where they have to be. Mine is to pastor them. So that could be my specific calling, to pastor them, working alongside them, leading them, praying for them, counseling them, checking on them, making sure that you're staying on track to get to where God brought you here to get to.
I as you're talking, I'm thinking about times when I've heard people use metaphors for their purpose. And so somebody says, I'm a connector, or I'm a ladder, or I'm a bridge, or some combination, or from what you were saying just now, I'm hearing shepherd as well. So yes, so it's interesting. So, all right. So now you got me thinking again. So now, which is good, right? So there's purpose,
right?
There's calling, and I've also heard people use the word assignment. So within a calling, you can have different assignments. So even in your journey, walking alongside people, encouraging them, it might be leading the choir. For this year, or next year it might be doing the children's ministry or something. Am I right?
You're right. And it's funny you should mention those two, because I remember when we started the ministry, for instance, I used to do all of that. At a certain point, I'm in the choir. At a certain point, I'm in the children's ministry. At a certain point, I'm in the accounting department helping. At a certain point, I'm in the prayer department helping. All of that, again, come together in helping me fulfill that purpose and to make sure that I am living that calling of pastoring people, and that purpose of helping them and pushing them to get to where they need to get to. So, different assignments all within your calling. Whatever, like Paul would say, I am all things to all people. Whatever I need to be in that circumstance to help you get to where you're going, or to pastor effectively, I'm willing to take that role and then just perform it.
Right. It sounds to me too that it's important to stay tuned into God, right?
Absolutely.
To know when it's time to move on from some assignment or whatever, Yeah.
Again, and the thing again with purpose is, and this may sound like a cliche, but we always like to say that, look, it's God who created you. As God, the Bible says, Psalm 139 makes it clear that, look, before you were born, he knew you. Every chapter of your life was written in his book. So we always start by saying that, hey, go to God to discover your purpose. As long as you believe it was God who created you, then go to him, the manufacturer, go to him, the one who has the blueprint to reveal your purpose to you. But beyond that, you got to stay in tune with him, like you're saying. You have to still keep connected to him so that he can keep guiding you and also shepherding you throughout that process of discovering and living your purpose.
That's important. I guess reading that Ephesians 4 verse 1, it just struck me how that calling Paul refers to is something that is general and expectations of all of us, right? Godly character, moral courage, personal integrity, mature behaviors, what he says, it's what the Amplified Version says. So do you agree that there are some elements of our calling that we all have to kind of galvanize ourselves to walk in? Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Because I would say that, again, God is the source. God is our source. God is our Father. And I always say that as long as you belong to the family of God, and as long as God is leading you, or you've made him the center of your life, there are certain things that are expected of you as being part of the family. Like even belonging to an earthly family, because if you belong to the Anda family, there are certain expectations of, there are certain things that people expect of you. If people meet you and they hear your name, they expect to see you to act in a certain way. In the same way, once you say that I belong to God, God is leading me, God is helping me fulfill my purpose to live out my calling, then there should be certain traits or qualities that everybody should see in you. So I suppose what Paul is saying is the truth. As long as you belong to this family, as long as you're walking in God's calling, then all of us have some certain general, character traits that we must exhibit to be able to live that fruitful and productive life that God expects us to live.
True. And I'm thinking of a doctor. If any kind of doctor, if you went in to see a doctor and he didn't know what a stethoscope was or how to hold it, I'm sure we'd all run, right?
Yeah.
And not continue. But I think also beyond what you're saying is so true. But it's occurred to me as well that beyond that, for God to truly work his purposes through us, we need to have discipline, godly behavior, walk in integrity. If you're always, your life is being derailed because of a life of crime, you'll find yourself less effective, right? At pursuing that calling. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, I something I like also to say is that God, God sets our destiny, right? God, again, Psalm 139, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, before I formed you, I knew you, and all of that. Those two combined again tells us that God created us with a purpose and for a purpose and set our destiny when we were made. But then we have also the power to change our destiny. God himself isn't going to change it, but by, like you said, your choices, your decision making, the actions you take, the people you decide to run with, whatever choices you make in life, all these things can end up derailing you and not keeping you on course to fulfill that purpose. So it's extremely important that once you believe it's God who created me, it's God who has set my purpose, it's God who has determined what he wants me to do, where he wants me to go, then you definitely must stay in tune with him. And you can't say that you stay in tune with him, but you won't live in obedience. So then, this is what he requires of you to do in order for you to be able to get to where he wants to take you. He set the parameters for your life, and that is what you must walk in. You go outside of it, it can throw you off. Again, thanks be to Christ Jesus, you can always come back, but wow, the time you would have lost, So again, it's important that you stay the course with him.
Right. So, Lady Monica, I see that you are a lawyer by training,
right,
and a pastor by vocation. I'm assuming. Did your purpose change?
Wow. So, I never really, again, the conversation about purpose always comes up at some point in our lives. Now, it is not a conversation that anybody, at least sat me down as a young kid and talked about. Nobody really will ask you, so Monica, at 15 or at 10 years old, Monica, what is your purpose? Nobody really asks you that question. It's usually, what do you want to do when you grow up? What is your future career? And sometimes that is actually linked to your purpose. So I started out in life that said that I wanted to be a lawyer. Did I think that maybe God was leading me along that path? No, because I picked that career at the tender age of 9. I don't know why I said I wanted to be a lawyer. But I picked it. And then from then on, whatever I did sort of, was geared towards becoming a lawyer. I never really thought much about whether it's my purpose, whether it's my calling. It was more like, okay, this is the career path that I have chosen. And along the line, I prayed a lot about it. Right from high school, every time, like, God, this is what I want to do. I need to get good grades to make it to the University of Ghana, to make it to the law faculty. So God help me. So, and along the line, he did help me all the way through. And then I became a lawyer. So now, as you saw in my bio, I've always been part of church. I've always served in church. I've always wanted to do some sort of, I knew I would be involved in ministry one way or another. I started out by being a children's ministry teacher. So I knew that I would be involved in some capacity. Now, when I met my husband and talk of ministry came along, I started rethinking the trajectory of my life and rethinking, okay, purpose, ministry, lawyer. Like, okay, and I remember asking God at that time that, okay, so if this is what we were meant to do, why do you have to take me through law school, go through all these hard examinations to get to where I am? But I have stopped asking that question because I have come to realize over the years that my legal training has actually made me a better preacher. It's made me a better advocate. It's made me a better teacher. So it's actually helped shape me to do the work that I am doing right now. So I believe that those two were intricately woven without even my knowing. And thinking back to the fact that I kept praying and telling God and asking him that, hey, help me to become this person, because I believe strongly that is what I was meant to be. God had other plans. He didn't stop me from finishing law school, doing all the hard exams. But then he's using that as part of what I'm doing now. And now I've come to understand that, wow, that was all part of the process. That was all part of the process to get me here. And sometimes I think of, Bible characters like Moses and David, and they probably wouldn't have thought that taking care of sheep had anything to do with their purpose. Being a shepherd had anything to do with delivering these, people from Egypt. But through all of that, God was preparing them for the ultimate, assignment, calling, purpose.
And you're so right. I'm a firm believer that nothing is wasted.
No.
Truly, even when our lives take like a different trajectory, I think
It
God
was all
still
part of
uses the skills, the learnings, he'll use it. David got a lot of benefits from being a shepherd, right? Learned how to kill big animals, learned how
Exactly.
to, make a mean aim with the stones and so
Yep.
on. And it served him well for sure. Something you said, I started rethinking the trajectory of my life. So go back to, Monica, probably in law school, perhaps just finished law school and starting to build her career. What made you start rethinking the trajectory of your life?
So I always knew that I'd be in ministry, doing something for God. But when I met my husband, and it became clear that this man was going into ministry, leaning towards ministry. There were so many prophecies that confirmed that there was nothing that gave him more joy, more fulfillment than being in the presence of God and doing the work of God and praying for people and all of that. Now, at that point, I realized that the two of us had not been connected by accident. So we're not just come together, have children, fulfill, but multiply and whatever. So the more we got deeper and deeper into God, the more it became clear that, okay, you two are going to be doing this work together as a team. All right. So then I'm like, okay, but then that was not the plan. Even for he himself, it was a gradual unfolding for both of us. Like, we all wanted to be involved. Maybe we'll just, do some work and support other ministries, have a little fellowship on the side to get in at this point. But then as you start ministering to people, and as you see lives changing, and as you see people also flocking towards what you're doing, and people come into your life, and because you prayed for them, because you counseled them, because you've been there for them, you see they themselves now discovering that, wow, there's value to my life than what I thought. Now, as we got deeper like that and see the transformations, we began to wonder, okay, maybe we should really start giving into this thing called ministry and focus on it and see how well we can make it work. And I remember once, my husband likes to tell this story. I remember once we went to a meeting, and he went there because, at the beginning of every ministry, every woman of God, man of God will tell you it's tough. Because in the beginning, and I like to say that we started this ministry armed with nothing but the word of God and faith.
Wow.
In a culture that we're not really familiar with, so when you start, it gets challenging. And at some point we're thinking, you know what, maybe we should just, put the brakes on this thing and then just disappear and maybe go do something else, get back to whatever. He's also a lawyer, whatever we've been trained to. I remember he went into a meeting once, and the prophet called him and asked him where his wife was. So he said, oh, my wife's at home, because I had a little child at the time. So he stopped and said, well, bring her the next day. So the next day he said, well, let's go. So I packed up the baby and we went. And once when we got there, he was preaching, he came towards us and asked, where his wife was. So he said, well, this is my wife. So he said, both of you come forward. We went forward, and he said, the two of you have decided that you're not going to do this anymore. You have told yourselves you're not going to do this anymore. But God says to tell you, stay the course. Stay the course. So at that point, whatever other thought we had about, let's abandon this because I know we'll talk about challenges, it's challenging, blah, 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 went out of the window. So it's like, okay, now let's start rethinking this thing and actually stick with it and make it work.
Wow. Listen, I have tears at the back of my eyes, and I have goosebumps, for real, just hearing you talk about that. And there's a couple of things I've picked up from what you just said. Number one, that you guys just loved it. It started from just a passionate desire, a love for things of God,
yes.
And with no agenda, or with not a huge agenda. You just began to help out in church, love on people, support people. Right. And as you did that, I'm figuring out that you continue to build your own skill level and I don't know what word to use, to the point where and then but also I'm hearing that it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy,
Yeah.
Starting a whole church with, like you said, armed with the word of God. That's crazy.
That was crazy. And I think that, and my husband has this passion, for God, and he's a very one track person, in the sense when it comes to things of God. Like, okay, if this is what God says we're gonna do, then we're just gonna do it. So we start out, and we didn't, we didn't have any affiliation with any major ministry. All right. So we didn't really have any at the time, didn't really have any peers or mentors who were doing we could learn from, because sometimes when you start out, there's some who are privileged to belong to an established ministry. So once they start out, they have, all the blueprint laid out already. They have the mentors to look up to. Their predecessors have gone out of them and, laid the way. Their systems and structures already in place. But then when you're starting from scratch, there's nothing like that in place. So you
Wow.
have to build your own thing. So that's why I was saying that.
Wow.
So for me, right? So even when we started out, I felt that at that time that, look, at this point, my job or my task is mainly just to be in the back room and just to push you, take off whatever else is in the back room, so that you can go out there and do your thing without thinking too much about what is happening in the back. So then whatever role I had to assume, I would. I've been a Sunday school teacher. I have led prayer. I have led worship. I've supervised the accounts department. We started the women's ministry. So whatever was needed to be done, I would jump in and then get it done. Now, again, knowing that you're dealing with people, disappointments, heartbreaks will happen. So you pour yourself into people, and then they just walk away and leave you. I remember when we started out, it was just a small fellowship, and then so when it's a fellowship, and let's say you're meeting Sunday night, you get lots of people coming through. They go to
Yes.
their church, they come back for an extra, filling. So then when you finally register this as a church, and now you start Sunday mornings, that is when you know who really belong to you. So you start at the fellowship, maybe you had more people coming. Now you start, and it's like, okay, 2, 3 people, 10 people, and you're like, okay, is this is this really it? At the same time, also, we were raising, again, little children. We were working on a new marriage. So all of that made it a bit difficult, a bit tough. But then we just kept going because, first of all, we believe that, hey, this is what God has called us to. So for those of you who are listening, the fact that you've discovered your purpose or your calling doesn't mean that it's not going to be challenging. It will be challenging. And once you found it, you've got to stay loyal to it. You've got to be tenacious. You've got to keep pushing, and again, you have to have faith, because sometimes that is really all you have. You have to have faith. And for me, as time went on, we started now finding people, surround ourselves with people who will speak into our lives, who will pray with us, who will encourage us. But again, we also realize that people are not always going to be there. So you have to find that. David encouraged himself in the Lord. You have to find that encouragement also from within, and believe that this is what God has called me to. So I'm going to press on no matter what.
Amazing. Amazing. I wow. I feel like everybody should have a book of dreams. Everybody should have a notebook, a journal where they're writing down either the prophecies on their lives or what God is downloading onto them.
Right.
Because I feel like when you said, but we believed, I'm thinking that you had somewhere where you know what, God told us this.
Yes.
And he who promised is faithful. So we're going to keep going.
We're going to keep going.
I love that you said you surrounded yourself with people, right? Like-minded people, who would, push you through and also encourage you. However, that being said, everybody needs their own relationship with God.
You do.
Everybody needs to be able to, even if there's nobody around, you encourage yourself in the Lord.
Encourage yourself. And again, for both of us, like, having the right partner also really helped, because we're on the same page. We shared the vision, so then we could encourage each other. When things got tough, we would turn to each other, and we'll encourage each other, like, yo, so this thing that we're doing is, well, let's keep going. I mean, God called us, and I think one thing, again, with walking in your calling, your purpose, or your assignment, is also to yield to time, because time will always make you understand or know that indeed you're on the right track. Sometimes we not stick to it for long enough to know that this is really indeed what God has called me to do. Because sometimes when it gets tough, you're like, okay, if this is what I'm supposed to be, probably it's not supposed to be this tough, so I'm bailing out. But time will always let you know that indeed, because whatever God builds lasts. Whatever God builds is not destroyed by time.
Whatever God builds lasts.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
As we are talking, I'm thinking of this phrase, in the fullness of time.
In the fullness
It
of
all
time.
makes sense, right? It all
Yes.
makes
It does.
sense.
It
But
does.
you just take that conviction and continue to run with it. And it's a
You
walk
have
of
to.
faith, right?
It is. It is. And a lot of the times, my husband and I just look back and we're like, we've come far. Oh. We've come far in the
Wow.
sense of the church. We've come far in the sense of even in our own lives. I was talking to somebody, a young lady, about marriage and all of that. And I said, me when I met Pastor, I didn't have anything. He and I both started together. He didn't have anything. You should see the engagement ring he bought for me. But guess what? Now he can afford to buy me a pair of red bottoms. And then we joked. Because those are the things sometimes we look at it, we're like, wow, we've really come far. Like we're still standing. The church is still standing. And
Amen.
we all just went through an unprecedented period, the pandemic that none of us has been through before, at least.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
If you haven't lived beyond probably 120 years, you haven't been through one before. And the church, and every time we realized the church just kept standing. We never had to close the
Mm.
doors. When we hear of other men of God depressed or close their doors because of that, we look back and we're like, wow, we didn't have to beg for money. The people kept coming. Even when they weren't coming, they were still supporting the ministry. And I'm like, Pa, that's his my life. Pa, we sailed through. And all of these things
Wow.
confirms that we are on the right track. Or
Mm.
when somebody calls you and tells you that, Pastor, I just got admission to college. Somebody who, when you met, probably thought school is not my thing. I'm not smart enough. I'm not. And they call you like, oh, we just bought a house. I just got an admission. I just started my business. All these things tell you that, wow, we're on the right track. And then these things come over time. So the moment you
Wow.
start, maybe the first 2-3 years, you may not be seeing the fruits, but then as long as you believe that this is what God has called you to do. And that is why the conviction about your purpose, your calling, your assignment is very important. Because once you have,
Yes.
you stay the track, and in the fullness of time, the fruit will come. And for us also, again, the fruit again being seeing people do well. I tell people that I'm excited when my church member buys a Mercedes and I'm just driving a Toyota. I'm excited because yes, their lives have improved. They're doing well. They're doing better. Yeah.
It's all about being pleasing to God. It's all about fulfilling what He give, doing your work, doing your assignment He gave to you,
Doing your work.
right?
Yes, doing your work. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I know this will bless somebody. Um, Lady Monica, what do you have to say to encourage somebody who perhaps, at some point abandoned their calling, their purpose, their assignment because the going got tough, because life got in the way, because they made the best choice they thought they needed to make at the time. Now the years are past, and perhaps they may look back at their lives and where they think they should be and where they are, there's a gap. What can you say to encourage such a person?
Right. Again, I would say, and if you're a Christian, even if you're not, okay, I would say that go back to God and tell God that, God, I want to get back on track. Or God, I really want to know what it is that you want me to do. Again, they started by saying that, I was not started a few minutes ago, that the fact that you discovered or you found your purpose doesn't mean that you won't face challenges.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
challenges are part of the process. And so I believe that, first of all, just go back to God and ask God to help you find some stability, help you find some balance, help you get back to where He intended for you to be. I was reading, I believe, Acts chapter 7, and just before Stephen was about to be stoned, and he was telling the story of the Israelites and traced the history from Abraham all the way to Jesus. And somewhere along that, I think it was around verse 24, 25, he talked about Moses and the fact that at 40, Moses went to, kill that Egyptian when he was separating the fight between the Jews and the Israelites. And then the Bible said in verse 25 that Moses thought that his people would realize that God was going to use him to deliver them, but they did not. So that tells me that Moses discovered his purpose at 40. At some point around 40, he realized that this is what I'm meant to do. So then I see two Israelites fighting and I'm going to separate them. And they're like, oh, really? You want to kill us like you did the Egyptian? And then he runs. And I'm thinking at that point, he may have become disillusioned. Because here I am, I've realized what I'm here to do. The people I'm here to serve don't realize that. Without them buying into what God has called me to do, I can't really do it. So then he finds himself in the wilderness, and for the next 40 years, I'm thinking living in his father-in-law's house, thinking of his father-in-law's sheep.
Working the family business,
I know, it must have been a bit demeaning living in your father-in-law's house, and all that time going to the desert every day, the drag of it all. He must have been disillusioned. He must have questioned his purpose. But then 40 years later, God calls him and actually set him back on the track that he basically thought he had abandoned 40 years before. But again, it's also because he was paying attention to God or paying attention to surroundings without even realizing it, because somebody would have seen the burning bush and run.
Yes.
Bush is burning, it's on fire, but it's not burning. I'm out of here. But he was paying attention. So you can see that he was still searching, he was still seeking, even though it may not have been that obvious. So I'm saying that keep paying attention to God. Pay attention to your surroundings. Go back to God. He can bring you back and set you on the path that he actually called you to be on. If you look at somebody like Paul thought that he had found his purpose to persecute the Christians, to stop. I'm going to kill this new movement. That is, I'm going to go wherever I can go, whatever it takes. I'm going to drag these people, bring them to be persecuted. And then after that encounter in Acts chapter 9, he realized that, oh my gosh, I was actually on the wrong track. This is what I was supposed to do. And the moment he discovered that, the Bible says immediately he started preaching Jesus in the synagogues. So sometimes purpose unfolds over time. Even Jesus was born knowing his purpose. At least at 12 years old, he knew what he was here for. He found himself in the temple, talking to all these gurus. And then his mother comes and his parents are like, why'd you do this to us? You got lost and you got us worried. And he's like, why are you searching for me? Didn't you know that I'd be in my father's house? So then he knew what he was meant to do at the tender age of 12. But even he still needed training. We don't know what happened between 12 and 30. But we know he went home, submitted to them, and started working his business as a carpenter until 30. He was revealed. So the point is that purpose unfolds over time. For some people, they know at once. Some people, it unfolds over time. And in that unfolding period, it may seem like you've lost your way. It may seem like I'm not really seeing the fruit of what I'm doing. But I'd say go back to God and ask him to redirect you if you have, left that path, or ask him to make it plain or make it clear to you as to what you're supposed to be doing. So once if you found your purpose, please don't give up because you've come up against challenges, because you've met difficult people, because things are not that easy. Jesus went to Nazareth, and his own people rejected him, but he kept pushing and went to the other places to do what he was meant to. If you haven't discovered it yet, again, go back to God.
Right. And Moses was always a deliverer, but there was a timing, and even in that desert period, it wasn't wasted because he was probably, it may seem like a simple thing, right?
Yeah.
Tending to sheep, but maybe there were some strategies and things he was learning.
Please take up those Israelites, man, we're worse than sheep. Today we ate manna, we are tired of manna, we want meat. Okay, where's the water? There's, so taking care. And if you can be patient with sheep, I think you can handle any group of people. So all that was the training. Right.
Plus, and I love what you said about he was paying attention to.
Yes.
Because if he had been sleeping on the job, he probably wouldn't have seen that burning bush.
Right.
Right. And then again, Paul's skills when he was persecuting Christians, and then when he became, an apostle, they're the same skills, but he was using them as God intended. Right. Amazing. Yeah. So we need to keep going. We need to keep seeking God. We need to keep paying attention. We need to keep working those skills and talents that we probably had since the beginning. And we need to keep trusting that at the right time, it will bear the fruits.
It will unfold.
That he told us it will bear.
Yes.
Amazing. Lady Monica, what do you want? You told us what your passion is.
Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy. I think that I would want it to be, I made a difference in people's lives. I want people to remember me for being the person who set them on the right track. being the person who pulled them out of, the doldrums and put them somewhere where they could believe in themselves. I want them to mention my name and say, but for this woman, I wouldn't have known that I had all this in me. I wouldn't have known that I could be this person, I could do that. I don't really want my legacy to be anything material, because one thing that I think God has trained us, with doing this in this whole ministry thing is to understand that our success is not necessarily tied to material things, but actually tied to the name that you leave behind. So I want people to remember me for being that woman who changed their lives or who brought them into purpose.
Or brought them joy by wearing her amazing hats.
That too. that too.
Lady Monica Aryitey, this has been an amazing, 40 minutes. Thank you so much. I know that, what you've shared today will bless people.
Amen.
So thank you so much. My regards to your beautiful family. And one day I'll come visit.
Well, now I know you're in Florida, so whenever I'm there too, I think it's time we planned a trip for the kids to Disney. I didn't really want to take them when they were younger because I figured they wouldn't appreciate it. It was just, they don't remember it. Now they remember. So I think that
indeed. So I'm 20 minutes from Disney, so for sure.
We'll have lunch together. Or we'll drink some tea. My husband drinks coffee, so you guys.
So here that will have to awesome.
I can bring my tea along. I'm okay with that, because I like specific teas. So.
Oh really?
Yes.
Give me your list. I'll make sure it's there for you when you come.
And it has to come from London. I don't trust the teas here. It has to come from. So
you're a tea snob like that, huh? Like
I'm a tea snob. Yeah, yes. Earl Grey, Lady Grey, English breakfast. Those three, I don't like flavored teas. It has to be just black tea. Then I add my cream, no sugar, and then I enjoy it. If I have a pack of shortbread, again from London.
Oh my gosh,
I'm good.
You are exactly like one of my dear friends. This is exactly what she does too. It has to be Earl Grey or one of those British teas with a shortbread.
The taste is different, the ones they make in America. No, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So yeah.
Awesome. You will love it in Florida because we historically have had lots of British holiday makers. So in our grocery stores, there's everything, all the British stuff there. So don't worry, I have you set. Just plan your vacation. Let me know.
I'll let you know.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you for having me. All right.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Hope Mongers podcast with Abaketo Anda. We'd like to continue to bring you amazing episodes, so please subscribe to the show. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please give us a good rating. You can also follow us on social media at Abaketo Anda. My best-selling book, Reflections of a Hope Monger, which inspired this podcast, is available now on Amazon. Thanks for listening. See you next time, and be a hope monger.